Hello, Kai. This is a very quick tutorial on some basic MacBook computer operation and some simple GarageBand tips and tricks. Hope you can hear me okay. I'm just using the internal microphone on my MacBook computer, so it's probably not the greatest audio quality, but as long as you can hear what I'm saying, it hopefully should do the trick. So let's begin. So this is our taskbar or start menu at the bottom here. So if you go along the different icons, then the main icons that you'll need on a Mac, you've got the Finder, which you can type things in and it will just bring up all the files on your computer. And then you can like click them if you want to open them or view them. Also within the Finder, you've got this left menu here, which has a bunch of, I guess, like categories of like how it's like stored the information. So your desktop, your applications, where you'll find most of your programs, your documents, which is as default, it saves a lot of your files in document folders. Your downloads, so whenever you download something, it'll automatically go to this download folder. And then you've got here, I've got two of my external hard drives that I've got plugged in, and they also appear up here on the left. This AirDrop, you can turn on an iPhone or an iPad, and you can directly share files via AirDrop if you activate AirDrop on your other Mac device. Yeah, so that's Finder. A quick way to bring up Finder is actually pressing Command Spacebar, and then it brings up this little like search window. And then into that search window, you can type whatever you might have on your computer. So as a general rule, it's good to actually store documents in like specific locations rather than just having files everywhere. So here I've sort of got some folders that I've got organized. So this is my sound effects folder. There's all my sound effects in it. And I kind of categorize things by like what the type of sound is. It's just a really good habit to get into, because then if you need a file on like later down the track, whether it be a photograph or a homework or audio file or video, if you've got it very organized, then when you go to find it, you can just sort of, whooshing sound. Okay, so there's all my whoosh sounds, which the only reason I can find it is it's labeled correctly, and I've stored it in a folder which is easy for me to find it later on down the track. I've also got a media folder which I've like stored all like my music and movies in. I've got like session templates, which are like for the different programs I use. I might just have like a template, so I can just go into the template and I have to keep setting up the session every time. These are like videos that I've ripped off YouTube that I use for video editing. And yeah, this is like the folder for like the album project I've been working on for a while. And then I usually just back everything up on an external hard drive, or I usually leave most of my files on this external hard drive. And then I will back it up again on Google Drive. It's just a good way to sort of back up your data so you don't lose files. So we've also got Launchpad. So this is sort of like all your applications stored in this menu, kind of like an iPad. And you can just press the scroller button on your mouse, or I think you can flick across with your like keyboard arrow, or maybe with a mouse pad, like a trackpad. I think you can just sort of like swish across. And this kind of just has all like the different things on my computer. So you've got your App Store, which like all iPhones have. Safari, which is your like probably the best default internet browser to use. Mail. So your dad, if he wanted to, could connect Yahoo Mail to the mail. Your calendar, Notepad, so you can write notes in that. FaceTime, which we used last night, and messages, which we found out it worked. It just wasn't the greatest thing. Maps. You've got your photos, so any photo you put automatically store in there. I've got like music, which is just iTunes, GarageBand, iMovie, which comes default, which you can do some basic audio editing on. We've also got Siri here and your system preferences. Now, like system preferences might seem kind of scary, but it's actually probably one of the most important things to get your head around on a Mac computer, just because sometimes you'll have to change a couple things within it. But I'll show you the main things you need to know about system preferences. And most of these other apps here are just like different programs that I've installed. A lot of them are free. And a lot of them have just like improved the functionality of what I can do on my computer. So I've got the Adobe Creative Cloud, these Isotope portals. A lot of them are actually free music software that I've installed, which you can actually get, like once you start using Logic, you can start installing sort of external like music software. What else have I got here? I've got Reaper, which is an audio program that's really good. Final Cut Pro, that's a video editing program that comes with Logic. And then I've just got some other different things. VLC is a video program. I've got Chrome, which I hardly ever use, but some certain applications you might need to use a Chrome browser, just because people design things differently and they all use different software. So it's really just like having the right tools available if you need to do that particular thing. So most of the main things on this taskbar here, you can actually drag them in. So for example, I've sort of customized this bottom toolbar to be indicative of this kind of tools I want to use. So I might actually I want to use Final Cut Pro. So you can actually drag it from the launch pad and just slot it in here on the menu. To escape this view, press exit. And then I've got Final Cut Pro in here. And if I don't want Final Cut Pro, I can right click, options, remove from dock. Right click on the desktop will bring up view options. You can change the desktop background. You can do a couple other little things. On a folder, kind of like a Windows computer, you can copy it, you can delete it, you can color code it. You can do all these little sort of things. But the main information you probably need to access is probably system preferences. So this is like system preferences. So it's got lots of things here. The main things you probably need to know, general, just sort of like your general desktop settings. You've got your desktop and screensaver view, which you can change there. Dock, that's the bottom dock here, which you can sort of customize different things here, the size and whatnot. You can also just drag up the size from that the top of that like line. We've got Siri, which I never use. Spotlight, that's basically that search function, command spacebar. You don't really need to know much about that. What we do need to know about is extensions and security and privacy. So sometimes using certain things on the internet, it might want certain extensions. And sometimes you just have to go into here and click a checkbox to enable a certain piece of program or third-party extension to work. Now, sometimes Mac comes up with these things like, do you want to install this? Or do you give permission to this file? And it can seem quite scary, but it's basically just a default security setting. It's just like, did you really want to do this thing? I mean, if you download software from a trusted site that's a well-known company, it's usually fine. But it's just something to be aware of, that most of the time it'll come up with anything that's is downloaded from the internet that isn't from the Apple Store. It'll usually come up with these like warnings, but it's just an Apple Mac thing. It's nothing to really be too worried about. So we've also got security and privacy. Sometimes for an app like Zoom or Teams or certain things, see, it's like the Zoom thing's ticked. That means I've given Zoom permission to use my camera. And this means that I've given these programs, GarageBand, Logic, Premiere, Reaper, I've given these programs permission to use my microphone. The reason I've given it permission is you can't actually use these programs without the microphone. Like you need the microphone for Teams. Audio programs will need the microphone. So these are just different little things that sometimes you need to change in order for something to work. If you need to change something, like you might want to tick, I want to allow screen recording on Google Chrome. So you'd click the little box. You'd have to use your password or your touch thing if you've got that set up. Then say it unclicks. Then I can click Google Chrome. Or I can say, no, I actually don't want it. And then I click the lock again and it saves that change. So what else we've got here? Sound is another thing that you'll sort of probably need to learn a little bit about. It's once you get your head around it, that's pretty simple. Pretty much the output and input is just sending information out of your computer or sending information into your computer. So with audio, you're only sending in audio information. So I've got all these different outputs here, and it all might seem kind of confusing, but it's actually a fairly standard system that's fairly universal across most MacBook computers and actually most PC computers. The names just slightly differ. So without your audio interface plugged in, your standard output setting on a MacBook computer should be called something like MacBook Pro speakers. In your case, it'll probably just be MacBook speakers because my computer is a MacBook Pro, which is just a slightly different model. And my audio interface is called Audio Box 18 by 18. So if I had my audio interface not plugged in and I just wanted to listen to music on the computer, I would probably choose MacBook Pro speakers, and this audio would just come out of the computer. I could plug my headphones in, then it would still come out, and then it would just default to the headphones. If you plug the headphones in, sometimes a different device will come up in this list on output called headphones, but it really is it's just your MacBook Pro speakers or your MacBook Pro audio card as default, which is that box. So here, this one here is actually a record player that actually comes up as a output input device just because the type of cable that I'm using for that record player. But really all these other things here, this is like a more complicated audio interface setups that I've designed for certain things. But really all I ever usually use is MacBook Pro speakers or my audio interface, Audio Box 18 by 18. So your output settings will have MacBook Pro, MacBook speakers or headphones, and it'll also have Audio Box, or sorry, the name of your audio interface. So if you want to use the audio interface on your computer, you just go to the Apple logo here, System Preferences, Sound, and you'd click your audio interface, which is the name of whatever it's called, and then you exit out of it. And then to do your sound input, so now we've got, okay, it's got Audio Box 18 by 18 set up as output. My input is actually where the microphone might be coming from. So I can plug microphones or instruments or drum kits into my audio interface. So my input is the audio interface. If I just wanted to use the microphone on my computer, I'd click MacBook Pro microphone. If I have a Zoom call and I have this clicked, Audio Box 18 by 18, the microphone on my laptop won't actually work because the setting here of my audio interface is overriding it. So if you've got your audio interface plugged in and you have to do like a remote phone call with someone, a lot of the time you might actually have to click it back to MacBook Pro microphone just to get the phone call to work. There is other ways to get around it. It's just a little bit tricky to get your head around. It's not too complicated. It's just certain programs require certain things to be done. But really, all you really need to know is output is either your computer speakers or your audio interface. You hear your output from your audio interface via your headphones you plug in or speakers if you plugged in speakers, and your input, which is basically like what is the recording like what's the input of the sound. So it's either your microphone on your computer or it's anything you plug into your audio interface. So basically, just imagine like you've just plugged in your audio interface. You come in here, you're like, click, click, click. I've got my input. Yeah, I've got my output. We're ready to go. Also, too, if you forget where the sound thing is in system preferences, you can actually just press Command Space. You can type in sound. It comes out with a little icon. You click sound, double click, and it comes up with the same menu. So that Command Space, actually, like if you know the name of the application on the computer, you can basically just find it straight away. So that is probably the end of some like the basic computer functionality here. You should turn your computer off when you're not using it. It's not good to leave a computer on for days and days and days. So every time like you finish a session using it, I would click shut down. I mean, all these other features are sort of fairly generic things that you might sort of have on a Windows computer. You can right click, create a new folder. You can double click here, Kai's folder. You could drag all these folders into that folder. You can right click here and you can change the view. It can be a list, or it might be icons, or gallery view of the photo, so you can see the photo. I usually leave it as a list or via like the name. Where's it gone? Show view options. That's my little window. I should be wearing my glasses. Anyway, it's here we go. As list, as icons. Another thing you might notice as well, this right-click menu here, a lot of the menu items are the same as up here. This one is specific to the folder. You might notice it says Finder. If I click on the desktop, so if I click on here, or if I open, I don't know, this program, and I click on here, see that changes to Safari up the top. Now that means these menu functions are for Safari. If you click back here, it's back to your desktop. So it'll really prioritize whatever you have as a window. And then that top menu is now music. So if we exit out of music, click back on Safari, that menu Safari. It's just how like the operating system works, and it's how it sort of defaults that top menu bar to the menu bar of the application. And if you just want to go back to the Windows, the MacBook Pro default menu bar for the computer, you just click on the desktop. Anyway, I will record another tutorial soon, which will kind of talk about the basic sort of GarageBand functionality we went over last night. And any questions, send me an email and I will get back to you when I can. Cheers. Bye.